Hi, welcome back to episode 9 of Coach Barnabas, and just grateful that you're here. I hope that you've had a chance to listen to previous episodes. If not, hey, there's 8 others to listen to and kind of bring you up to speed. It doesn't take that long. But anyway, I appreciate the fact that you're here, and we'll just kind of jump right in. I want to just kind of share with you a little bit. I think I've alluded to it a little bit in previous episodes, but I kind of want to get into it a little bit. I have talked to many people who, at some point in their lives, some are facing it now, some are considering things, or some have been here in the past where you are up against a situation where you feel like there's a tremendous leap of faith that's required of you, whether it's a job change or moving from one town to another, from one house to another, maybe moving across country, which is what I did. But sometimes it starts with incremental things, and I found that to be the case in my life. While incremental, you don't know it at the time. It seems like a pretty big thing in the moment, but you don't know what you don't know at the time is that maybe this is setting you up for something bigger down the road. And certainly that was the case for me. Some of you are so organized and so planned out in your lives, which I admire. I'm not one of those guys. At least not always. In some ways, you set plans and you kind of set little tent poles, I think they're called, where it's like you want to achieve certain benchmarks along your path, and you want to be here by this period of your life, and then on to that, and on to the next thing. I'm not nearly that organized. But I'm not also seat of my pants kind of guy. There's usually some sort of rhythm or reason to decisions I make or whatever the case may be. But I found in my personal life is, let's just kind of break it down. And I think I've mentioned this before, is a lot of people have like 5-year plans and they say, by the time I'm this age or by the year, whatever, I want to be here in my career, my family, and all that kind of stuff. And that's important. And I think that's great. In my case, the things that I wanted to accomplish by certain ages just didn't happen. And, there's only so much that is within your control. For instance, when I was in college, I think I've mentioned it before, is the expectation was, especially in the size of the college I was in, and it was a Christian Bible college where, it's you're there to get a degree and a spouse. Let's be honest. It seems to be the way it all worked out. For me, just didn't happen quite that way, and that's okay. But, so you figure you have these certain set of ideals. You have these certain things that you're just, hey, this is the way I want it to be, and you're very narrow in your scope, and that's okay. So, for instance, in my early 20s, I thought, okay, I want to find somebody who's never been married, has no kids, and no real entanglements like that. And then you're going to meet and live happily ever after. Then you hit maybe late 20s, and maybe somebody has been married before, but they have no kids. Okay, that's kind of the next little. You make a concession there, or vice versa. Maybe they've never been married before. They have a child. That child's got to be like under 3 years old or 4 years old. You don't want them too old. And then you get a little older, and then you kind of start to make little concessions again, little compromises. Okay, well, maybe they've been married and they have a child, but no more than one child. And they have to be like 10 years old or younger. And then you get a little older, and then it's like, okay, maybe they have 2 kids. So you see where I'm going is you tend to make little compromises along the way to kind of fit your reality and make your expectations more realistic. And, so I had to make those adjustments a lot in my life, because, realistically speaking, when I hit my 40s, I wasn't going to find somebody who was going to be like me necessarily, who had never been married and had no kids. I'm sure they're out there, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want to narrow God from what he may want to do in my life, which may be outside of the scope of what I consider ideal. I want to be open to what he considers as being ideal. And that was kind of the approach I took. Not kind of, that was the approach I took. And, but it came from having to kind of adjust what I considered to be perfect, and just be more open to what maybe God considered would be perfect for me. Um, so I during this nomadic period of my life, opportunities came up where I lived in one town in one house pretty much all of my life. And then as I got older, I got in my 20s, it was time to move out. Got a place. I lived in the next good sized town up from where I grew up. So not a big jump, but it was my first kind of place on my own after college, and lived there. But I'd still go home all the time, visit and take my laundry. Let's be honest. Um, get a nice home cooked meal from mom, all that kind of stuff, and I go home. And then after a while of that, my parents they started going to Central America, Costa Rica specifically, and they came to me and said that they were going to be moving to Costa Rica, and Dad was going to retire, and they were going to go down there and basically be missionaries in Costa Rica, and probably in a future episode, I'll go more into their story, but that was a monumental um, move in their lives, especially at the age they were. As Dad was probably early 60s, I think, maybe very late 50s, but early 60s probably. Um, I don't remember very well. I don't remember exactly what year it was, but be that as it may, here they were at that stage of their lives, and they're going to start all over in a foreign country. And and then suddenly my foundation of family was gone, or going to be about to be gone, because it's not like they were just moving to Southern California. I'm from Northern California. It's not like they were just moving a few hundred miles away, and it would be easy to go down and visit and that kind of stuff. It was very difficult and also hard to even communicate by phone, because this was back in the days when you had to pay for long distance, and it was very expensive calling other countries. And so we would talk very rarely. And even when we did, they were very brief conversations because they got very, very expensive very, very quickly. So, but this also left me in a place where it's like, I'm on my own now. And what am I going to do? And so an opportunity came up for me about an hour from where I live, from a buddy of mine I knew from college, to move to the town where he was. I had participated in Christmas and Easter musicals at his church, and he made me an offer in terms of getting involved in leadership there, working with youth, and also doing some music stuff. And I thought, well, you know what? Why not? I enjoyed. I had a great relationship with him, and knew a lot of people there from my association with music and different things. And there was nothing keeping me where I was. Why not? So I did. Was there for a couple of years, and then a similar situation came up where there was a church in San Jose that approached me and had asked me if I'd be willing to get involved there musically and different things. And it was a very large church, very prestigious church in a lot of ways, had a great heritage musically and spiritually and all this other really wonderful aspects. And so I was very intrigued by that, but I also wanted to just really think about it, pray about it. I didn't want to just jump at it because it seemed good. I wanted to be what God wanted for me. So I did. It took some time, and then I felt like the green light to do that. And again, maybe I'll break that down because there's a lot of neat things that came from that process as well. But to kind of skip past that for now, I was in San Jose for, I want to say like 12 years or so. And I was very happy with my life there. Some of the best friends I've ever had in my life to this day live in San Jose. And it was just a great, great period of my life. But I started to get to the point to where I felt like I wasn't growing. I just kind of hit a wall in my life in terms of just personal growth and development, spiritual growth and development. It had nothing to do with social. I'm still single. San Jose's a big town, a lot of people everywhere. So it wasn't that. But I got to the point to where I felt like I just wanted to grow. And a situation opened up to me. By this time, my parents now, after this many years, had moved back to the United States. My mom had gotten ill, and just logistically speaking, they needed to move back to the United States where their insurance would cover more of the costs that that was going to be necessary to help her um, medically and physically. So they moved back to the United States, moved back to Northern California. We're living in the Sacramento area. Completely independent of that, an opportunity opened up for me um, as far as housing was concerned, where I could get a nice place. Because, as you may know, San Jose in the Silicon Valley is a very expensive, very, very expensive place to live. Um, so I had a nice apartment, but it was also very, very expensive. So another situation opened up through a connection, through a friend of mine, for a nice place in a little gated community. And it was nicer than where I was living, in a nicer neighborhood and all this other stuff. And for much less expensive. But more than that, I really sense like the way I put it, and the way that I think relates most, is that I felt like there was a fork in the road and neither way was wrong. And I felt like God was saying, you can stay the course you're on, and you kind of know what this next year is going to be like. For instance, we just crossed over into 2024. We're now into March. But I could really pull the calendar and tell you what my year was going to look like. Tell you every season, everything that I was going to be involved in, from musical standpoint. Was involved with coaching and in sports and doing different things. I could pretty much take out the calendar for this year and tell you what I was going to be doing here on out. And then I could probably even I could take next year's calendar and do the same thing. Even though we're still only in March of this year, I could tell you next year exactly what was going to happen. And none of those things were bad. But at the same time, it's like, okay, I'm basically living the movie Groundhog's Day, but on a 365-day basis, not the same day over and over again. But every year was pretty much what the year before was. And which, again, they weren't bad things, but I'd gotten kind of stagnant. And I wanted more. I wanted to grow more. I needed something different. And so, again, the fork in the road, and one path was like straight. And, like if you've seen Forrest Gump, when he's running out in the middle of the desert, and you could just see down this road for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. That's what it felt like. I could look down and just see, as far as you possibly can, and just, there it is. That's what it's going to be. The other side of the fork, you could probably see for about 100 feet. And then it would curve, and there were trees and everything else, and then it would just disappear. The road, the path would just disappear. You didn't know what was beyond those 100 feet. But at the same time, I felt like God was saying, you can stay the road you're on, and it's not a bad thing. But you know what you're going to get. Then there's the other way, which also is not a bad thing, but is going to challenge you. If you want to grow, you're going to have to trust me, because you can't see what's around that corner, and you're going to have to just trust me. So, with some trepidation, but at the same time excitement, I took that road and I moved to the Sacramento area. I was closer to my parents, but also some opportunities came up for me, like I said, about housing and stuff. And I was told that the job I had, I could work remotely from my home office, which was very convenient in this new place I had. But after a month of that, I've now made the leap, and I'm living in this new place. Everything's looking great. Couldn't be happier. But after a month with my job, they decided, you know what, we want to actually keep this position in-house. So they laid me off. So now I've made this leap, and the job that I was counting on was gone, was unavailable to me. So I was like, oh, okay, all right, well, I immediately start looking for a different job, which is among the things I hate the most in life, just be honest. Actually, moving and changing jobs, the two things I hate the most. And here I am, like in my first 30 days, I've just moved, and now I'm looking for a new job. So I'm doing that, and I find a job in the town I'm living in, and it was really a great move in terms of some of my past experience fit perfectly into this. The guy who I was reporting directly to was the CEO of a company based in New York State, but he was living in this town that I was in, working remotely, and so he really liked my resume, liked my experience, and said, "You'd be perfect. This is going to be great." Okay, I did that for about another month. I moved to the Sacramento area. It was in August, I believe. Pretty sure it was August. Got laid off of the one job in September. Got this new job. I think it was late September, thereabout, um, and took this new job. Doing that, I did that for a couple of months, and then they decided, nope, you know what? We want to actually um, staff this job back at our headquarters in New York State. So I'm laid off again. And this was like a week before Thanksgiving. Okay. So now I'm approaching the holidays, and once again, I don't have a job. So, gut punch. So I've made this move from where I was comfortable, everything was familiar, everything was, hunky dory. And now I've taken this other fork in the road, and I've been laid off of two jobs. Okay. Within my first few months of being there. And so back on the, starting to feel a little discouraged, starting to feel it. And then a friend of mine through my church calls me up and says, "Hey, would you be interested in working for this guy?" And just to leave out the details because they're not important, I was familiar with the person and they had a need. And it was going to be kind of involved in ministry and some other things. And so I thought, sure, that sounds great. I'd love it. Did that. And it was great. Loved it. I was very involved. It was through the church I was already attending, so the ministry aspect was already kind of built in, building relationships and all this other stuff. It was really a perfect fit, and I thought this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This was great. Get through the holidays, everything's good, and then February comes, and my mom is getting worse and worse with her health. And she gets hospitalized. She's in and out of the hospital. And finally, she's diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. Now, to answer the question, which is irrelevant at this point, but it's the question that everybody asks, so I'm just going to answer it. She didn't smoke. She wasn't a smoker, never smoked in her life. So that wasn't a contributing factor. It just was a combination of all the things she'd been suffering from in her body. And somehow this was it. And because of her health issues and because of her physical weakness, there was really nothing they could do. They thought any surgery or any chemotherapy, anything they would do to try to battle back the cancer would probably kill her. So the best thing that we could do was make her comfortable at that point. And so brought her home, and that was it, kind of thing. And within a very short period of time, she was in hospice. And by the end of March, really, it was 2009 at this point. So by the end of March, she was gone. She went very quickly. It was just a matter of weeks from the diagnosis to when she was gone. Excuse me. Now, the day after her funeral, my boss, I'd had that week off because she passed away, and my boss was like, take the time you need. He's very understanding, very supportive. And it, the day after the funeral, it was a Friday. The funeral was on Thursday, and we spoke on Friday. I said, "Man, you know what? Thank you for your support. Thank you for your friendship. I'm looking forward to Monday. I need to get back into normal because it had been a week from the day she passed to the actual funeral, maybe a little bit more than a week. So I was kind of ready to move on with my life." And he said, "Well, you know what? Why don't you take some more time? Just really to get on your feet and kind of settle in and everything." I was like, "No, I'm good. I really need to get back to work and take my mind off of things and move forward. I have the closure with now mom is taken care of." And, and he said, no, really take your time. I said, "Is there something you're not telling me?" And what it came down to is he said, "I'm going to have to lay you off. Financially, he just couldn't afford it anymore." And so here it is, the day after my mom's funeral, and I'm laid off for the third time. I've now been living in the Sacramento area for 6 months, on this grand journey of my leap of faith, and I've been laid off of 3 jobs and lost my mom. Uh, so it was like it was not easy. Had I known any of this was going to happen when I was presented with that fork in the road, I might have just said, you know what, forget that. I'm just going to stay with what I know. Now, my mom, what happened with my mom probably still would have happened. She didn't pass away because I moved. So I'm thankful that in those 6 months, I was able to live relatively local to them. It was about a 20-minute drive from where I lived to their house. So I got to spend a lot more quality time with them, not knowing this was going to be her last 6 months. So I look back and I go, I'm thankful for that. All the other things were tough, really, really tough. And it challenged me. I wanted a challenge. I wanted to grow. So be careful what you ask for. But ultimately, that's what I needed in my life. I wanted in my life. That's not how I would have chosen it to go. But that's how it went. And I look back on that time, as grueling as it was, but I'm thankful for it because it prepared me for what was next. And I'll get into that next time in our next episode. But so maybe this channel is about encouraging people, and I'm not sure if I've just scared you to death about making changes in your life. I hope not, because ultimately, the challenges we face, the obstacles, the adversity we face. You've heard the saying; it's so cliche, but it is 100% true. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And now I have Kelly Clarkson in my head, and that's never a good thing. But it was really the case. And from a spiritual standpoint, absolutely 100% true. And for me, I had to take these steps to prepare me for what God had for me even further down the road. And he knew that. I didn't. Again, that my vision of the road I was taking was very, very limited. But he knew. He's like, you got to trust me. Do you trust me? And it's like, yes, I do. Absolutely, I do. And I put my faith, completely up to him. And he led me through difficult times, but he was with me. He was always present. And I'm so incredibly thankful because a lot of people go through difficulties like that and don't have God to lean on and to guide them, to support them, or the support structure that comes from being in a community of believers like I had in my church and throughout my life. So I hope that as you're listening to this, if you're facing something and you feel like you're at this precipice in your life and it's either make the leap or take the safe route and just stay where you are, I hope you'll really think about it because that precipice may look scary. But it also may be a launching point for you. So I just really want to urge you to think about that, pray about it. And not all change is good. And certainly not all change is easy. It probably isn't going to be easy at all. Everything you think that you're prepared for may blow up in your face and not go at all the way you wanted it to or expected it to. But it happens, and you survive it anyway, and you grow through it. And sometimes that just needs to happen in our lives for us to mature and for us to learn and for us to be able to help others. And I hope that my experience in sharing it with you, such as it is, helps you. It helps you learn from the things I've gone through. And again, I'll share more as we go forward. But I wanted to leave you with that. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, I'd love to hear your feedback. So far in the 8 previous episodes, there's really not been much in terms of comments or things like that, but I'd love to hear from you. So please feel free to leave comments and message me, whatever the case may be. I'd love to hear from you. And I hope that my words or my experiences land on people who need this. And maybe right now you're not in that place. Maybe you were there 6 months ago. Maybe you were there 10 years ago. Maybe your opportunity or your situation is 6 months down the road, 2 months down the road, a year down the road. I don't know. But oftentimes you start to feel well in advance that something's coming. And I felt that in my life when these seasons were coming. I felt like change was coming. You just know it. You don't know how to quantify it. You don't know how to put it into words. It's not tangible. It's just this instinctive feeling you get that something, you need change and you feel like change is coming. You don't know what it's going to look like. You don't know what it's going to be, but you feel like you sense it's coming. And I felt that. So maybe you're even there feeling like, I don't understand it, but I just feel like change is coming or change is necessary. So if that's the case, I'd love to hear from you. But I hope you'll stay tuned because I'll share more about the next chapter that is pretty exciting, also scary in a lot of ways, but also very exciting. So be encouraged, be an encouragement. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care.